Today's session is going to be on managing well-being this semester. So my name is Eithne. I am an occupational therapist and a disability officer working with the Trinity Disability Service. This is kind of a topic that we would work with quite regularly with students, particularly since lockdown and since remote working and studying at home. It's been quite a big topic, as I'm sure you're all aware of as well. It's something that we are encouraging to maintain and manage on a regular basis. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. So the main aim of today's session then is to just mainly discuss the importance of balance while continuing to engage in remote studying at home, and the different challenges and the different disruptions then that this can have on a person's balance. So we will learn a little bit about self-care, something again that we discuss quite frequently in occupational therapy. The importance of self-care and all the different kind of strategies then that you can engage in from the comfort of your home as well whilst you're engaging in remote studying. And then finally, I'll share just a couple of resources then as well to support with the engagement of self-care during lockdown as well and remote studying. So it shouldn't take any longer than half an hour. It should be roughly around 25 minutes, and I'll just allow for 5 minutes as well at the end if anyone has any questions. There's also a chat function on the MS Teams function of this as well. If anyone has any wants to share links, or if anyone wants to share any comments as well, you're more than welcome to use that chat function there as well. So just to begin with, managing life at home. By now, many of you obviously will have experienced all the joys and all the challenges that remote studying can bring upon a person, and what living within the confines of your home and what meeting a few people, or in some cases no people at all, from day to day can really be like. And I'm also sure that there has been many bad days, but also very many good days, hopefully as well. But one thing I think we can all definitely agree on is that it's not easy. It's in no way easy, particularly when assignments are coming up and things like that as well. So when looking at the role of a student in a regular day, so even pre-pandemic, a year ago now, I can't believe I'm saying that as well, we can usually describe that role as being a juggling act. So as most of the time we are not just students, we're also friends, we're also family members, sisters, brothers, mothers, fathers, and some of us have part-time or full-time jobs as well. So we have several different academic, personal, work, social and family and financial demands and responsibilities as a result, and we have to juggle them all at the same time, which can get a little bit overwhelming. So when we skip forward then to today, and the during the pandemic life, I suppose you could call it, and all the additional challenges as well that has been brought into the equation, such as managing assessments from home, perhaps looking after a family member, or caring for a sister or brother, or maybe some of you might even be supporting a sister or brother with a Leaving Cert, for example, as well. This can understandably get very overwhelming again, and this can be a lot for someone to take on. At this point, we can start to see balance kind of go out the window sometimes. Achieving that routine that we want might be very, very difficult, and finding time to rest and relax and look after your self-care again can be maybe on the last of the final things of things to do at the end of the day. So when we think about all these different roles and all these different demands, they can obviously take a huge toll then on our mental and physical health. So looking after both our mental and physical health is absolutely essential for managing both our student role as well as other roles in our life. So those parent roles, those carer roles. This is something that we can achieve through balance. And it is something that we can achieve through self-care. And balance of occupations essentially as well, ensuring that none of those single roles or those single responsibilities or tasks or activities take over your day-to-day life. Often the self-care element of a person's life, as I mentioned, that can get pushed down to the bottom of a list of things to do. But especially when academic and financial or family demands are starting to take their toll and are starting to are in need of absolute immediate attention. So obviously when we see that the exam season is coming up now, that academic responsibility might take over at that time. And that's no problem, that's very, very normal. But how do we find that balance? And I think that's something that we'll hopefully discuss today as well. So what do we mean by engaging in self-care there? So I just mentioned there earlier about self-care, and this is one of the three different areas of occupation that we will consider. So you have self-care, leisure, and productivity. So self-care, what is self-care? It generally does refer to any activity or a task that allows you to take care of your physical, but also your mental health and your well-being as well. The diagram there on your right, that just gives us a couple of different examples of self-care activities. But these, however, they are very much just examples, because self-care looks different from one person to the next. Self-care might be very, very different for me, but for a sister, or brother, or friend, it might look like a completely different set of routine or tasks. As such, there isn't a specific amount of time or a frequency in which we should be engaging or allocating towards self-care. Instead, we focus more on the mental and physical signs that our mind and body showcases, so as to understand that when it is required, or when self-care is definitely needed. So based on these experiences or these signs, we can then learn how often we might need to engage in self-care, and that's where you might look at frequently putting in self-care into different times and things like that, and how to predict as well a time when self-care will be needed in the future. So some person, for example, might want to put in a bit of self-care on a Friday because they know they might be particularly exhausted after a week of work, or if someone has a part-time job, for example, again, they might put that in after that day long of work. So I've just listed a couple of those examples there on the right as well. So that includes rest and relaxation. It includes sleep. It includes exercise, looking after your personal hygiene, eating and dressing. They're all different examples of self-care. But as I said, that looks very different from one person to the next. So why is self-care so important then when we're trying to achieve that sense of balance, or that occupational balance? When integrated into our very busy schedule, so I imagine a lot of you here today might have a very busy, hectic 9 till 5 kind of a life. When it is integrated into our busy schedule, it does maintain a positive well-being. It allows us to just slow down, just to focus on the present and focus on ourselves. It helps us revitalize, it helps us re-energize when energy levels are depleted, perhaps. So that we can achieve then positive outcomes in whatever role that we must play, or the various different roles that we must play then on a day-to-day basis. So if we're not engaging in self-care, our ability to retain attention, or to be present, or to be compassionate, or perhaps to be thoughtful, that might all be reduced. And that can have quite a big impact on our relationship then with others. So perhaps those of you who are currently living in your home environment, or living with friends, you can often see that can have, and a lack of self-care can have a huge impact on your relationship with those families and those friends as well. So how do we know that we aren't looking after ourselves or engaging in enough self-care? So find it difficult to study for prolonged periods due to concentration issues. That can be a big indicator that we're not doing enough self-care, that we're not engaging enough rest and relaxation. Although we can understand that sharing a confined space with others at this time is quite difficult, another sign that we are not engaging in enough self-care is being irritable, particularly with those people that you would love and you don't really wish to be snappy or irritable with. That can be another indicator that you aren't engaging in enough self-care. Low motivation, interest levels again. So when engaging in a previously enjoyable occupation, if you no longer have motivation to engage in that, or an interest level to engage in that, again, that can be another indicator. Increased levels of anxiety. So if you find that you're feeling particularly anxious, again, that might be another indicator that you're not engaging enough self-care. Low mood, particularly for prolonged periods of times, or if you're experiencing quite a lot of kind of up and downs when it comes to moods. So lots of mood swings and things like that. Difficulty getting to sleep, or remaining asleep. Again, if this generally wasn't an issue for you, that can be a good indicator that you might need a little bit more self-care. Engaging in good sleep hygiene as well is really important then for that. And then another indicator then might be a loss of appetite, or a lack of routine with meal times as well. And then just in that diagram there on the right as well, I'm just going to mention a few physical signs that you're not engaging in enough self-care as well, and that includes fatigue. It might even include hair loss for some people as well, or hair becoming kind of dull or limp as well. Headaches or migraines is a big one. That's a key indicator of whether you're particularly stressed, but also whether you are engaging in enough sleep, rest, relaxation, things like that as well. Weight loss or weight gain, again, that can be due to the loss of appetite or change in routine of meals. And another indicator then as well is it might be feeling gaunt, or if you're looking gaunt. So kind of dark circles underneath your eyes, pale skin, they're all kind of generally associated with kind of lack of sleep or lack of self-care as well. So they're just a couple of different things, again, that just very much dependent on the person. A lot of people have a lot of physical or mental signs that they aren't engaging in enough self-care, but they're just the generalized ones. So how do we make sure that we are looking after our physical and mental health and well-being? And these again are just kind of a few key things to look out for. So if we just start with food and drink then, so start analysing, and this is what I mean by maybe start being a little bit curious. So start analysing what you're eating or what goes into your meal choice on a regular basis. Do you have a tendency perhaps to skip meals during the day, or do you have a late night snack instead? Do you have time to allocate it to home cook during the day, or do you choose to pick up processed or pre-cooked food perhaps? While we're being encouraged at the moment, obviously, to make as few trips as possible to the supermarket, thinking about creating a shopping list that does not include as much processed food or drink that is particularly high in sugar and caffeine, is something that we need to start doing to look after our meal choice and diet. It might even be a good idea to start thinking about batch cooking perhaps at the weekends as well, so that you have plenty of time in the evenings then or after study to engage in more rest and relaxation. So using your Saturdays or Sundays quite productively for that. And always have a bottle of water, and it's something that I always carry to hand with me. I don't think you can see that with the background there as well, but I always have my bottle of water very close by as well to make sure that you're keeping hydrated throughout the day as well. Changing your routine then by eating and drinking well can dramatically change fatigue levels, and you can also find that mood swings often associated with high sugar or high caffeine levels, they'll hopefully lessen once you start to change that up a little bit and get into more of a healthy diet. Moving on to exercise then as well. So getting outside for 30 minutes a day, I think, is just kind of a standard at this point, to make sure that you have a good level of fresh air, and even just the ability to just get out of that. Maybe small confines, maybe if someone's in an apartment, for example, just gives them the chance to get out of that small space. The other thing that I think that will be quite useful for is a lot of people are experiencing maybe lockdown syndrome at the moment as well. They might be feeling a little bit claustrophobic or trapped in the position that they're in at the moment within their home environment. So just giving you a chance to get out for those 30 minutes is really important. Going for a run, a walk during quiet times of the day as well. So just to ensure that you can manage to still distance yourself as well from other people, but just ensure that you get out there for your 30 minutes. Or if weather is particularly bad, I know I'm looking out the window at the moment and it's not great weather for a walk or for a run. Why not try a home workout or a bit of yoga, for example? And there's loads of different forms out there, loads of different things that you can engage in online as well for that. That will be obviously within the comfort of your home as well. Having that included in your routine, though, I think is really, really important, to having a regular kind of exercise regime throughout the week. It can just give you that little bit of structure that you might need as well, alongside having obviously the really beneficial effects of both physical and mental benefits of exercise as well. Then moving on to sleep then. So this can be a really perfect time, I suppose, to get on top of the good sleep routine. You don't have the distractions of returning home late, perhaps after a night out, or after meeting with friends, or all-nighters even at the library. So it can be a good time to just take advantage of that and start to get on top of a more regular kind of routine when it comes to sleep. Developing good habits and practicing good sleep hygiene is very, very important when introducing routine into a person's life. So picking a regular time to go to bed, using an alarm if necessary as well. I've heard of people kind of putting phones into a different room altogether when their alarm goes off to ensure that they get up and get out of bed. Use an alarm then as well to remind you, and setting it again for a regular wake up time in the morning. Ideally 7 to 9 hours of sleep per night. Again, it's very much dependent on the person, how much you might require for your energy levels, but that's usually what we will be looking at, 7 to 9 hours sleep. Try and also refrain from napping throughout the day if you possibly can, as that can lead to obviously a lot of difficulty then at night sleeping, and just generally it can lead to a lot of disruption during the day. So if we can refrain from daytime napping, that is ideal. It's also very important time in your day at night. It just gives you your mind and your body a time to charge and re-energize, and they're absolutely essential for both, again, the physical and mental benefits of sleep. So moving on to managing fatigue then. No, I don't think it's shown up all the rest, so there we go. So for some of you who are struggling with fatigue, so I know we're just moving on from the, we're just moving on from the sleep and the importance of sleep there. For those of you who do have a lot of difficulty with sleep, or have difficulty even just acquiring enough sleep, it is important to just firstly pace yourself. So while it is a perfect time, I mentioned, to work on sleep hygiene and management of your sleep, it is also important to notice that during lockdown and during remote studying, this can be often a big issue for a lot of people. But it's also really important to notice that that this is something that you need to pace yourself with. It's something that you need to grade and introduce into your schedule. It's also worth acknowledging that it won't happen overnight. It may require continuous effort to find out what suits you best. So just, as I said, just if you pace yourself with that one, and don't set yourself up for failure by expecting something to happen overnight. Know your limits. So do not push yourself to achieve too much in the time frame when energy levels are at their highest. So often people, particularly with maybe chronic fatigue syndrome, they might get caught up in a cycle of rushing to get absolutely everything done in a short time frame before experiencing quite a significant crash then, or an energy crash. And that can often exaggerate or intensify those symptoms then furthermore, leading to further frustration and perhaps then low motivation to engage in productive work again and go back into that cycle. So keeping a log which keeps track of all your energy levels, how much energy a particular task or activity may require, and the level of symptoms you're experiencing in that moment, will hopefully help you to identify then if you're in a position to complete that task at that particular time. And then try and reevaluate this after each task or activity. So keeping that little diary there beside you, take a note of it, particularly if this is something that you really do struggle with on a daily basis. Anticipate difficulties, and that's what I mean by being realistic as well, and not setting yourself up for failure. That not just with your energy levels throughout the day and your sleeping pattern, anticipate difficulty as well with your motivation, your concentration as a result. So it is very easy for us to give up after a bad day when you go back into that cycle again, when goals maybe haven't been met. So do try and create realistic goals and break these goals then down into smaller goals to ensure that you are not met again with that frustration, that failure at the end of the day. Schedule loads of breaks. So a lot of people might engage in the Pomodoro technique, for example, which encourages you to go for 25 minutes and take a quick 5-minute break, go again for 25 minutes and a 5-minute break. Do that 4 times before taking a 15 to 30-minute break. That it does encourage students to take those regular breaks, and that is absolutely essential for a lot of rest and relaxation purposes as well. Just try to avoid that rush and crash cycle. Pace out your day so that you include plenty of those breaks, and then practice good rest and relaxation strategies perhaps in the evenings then. So rest and relaxation will be necessary to reduce the impact of symptoms experienced due to fatigue. And I'll just go through a couple of those different strategies as well shortly, and we'll have time for a little bit of an experiment as well, which hopefully a few of you might want to try out with me as well. And then finally set up your environment. So set up your bedroom or your office or wherever you have to complete the task or activity, so that every resource required is very much close to hand, and it doesn't require then as a result any further expenditure of energy or looking about the place trying to find different things. Just have everything that's absolutely necessary there for the completion of that task very, very close to hand. It's also useful for those who might get easily distracted or have a tendency to procrastinate. Having everything there avoids the other distractions that might occur if you're looking around the place for different resources. Okay, so moving on then onto relaxation. Why is this so important? And I'll talk about this now in a few minutes as well. But particularly when you want to achieve that balance in your day-to-day life and achieve that kind of structure. Many of you might be I suppose you might be covered head to toe with assignments at the moment, and even if it's just taking notes after classes or online lectures, followed by study or exam preparation, things like that. And then alongside all the duties that we mentioned as well, and the responsibilities that people have as a carer or as a parent, or as a sister or brother, even as I mentioned, maybe perhaps supporting someone with a leaving cert as well, and on top of exam preparations and everything else. There's a lot that's been introduced obviously to your life as well since the pandemic, and they can be all really, really difficult to manage all at once. So stress levels understandably obviously can be high then at that point, and the task list might be never ending, but now is more than ever is a really important time to introduce rest and relaxation into your daily routine. So the busier you are, the more important rest and relaxation is. We'll just have a look now at the impacts as well of not engaging in rest and relaxation, and the effects that they can have in your mind and body as well. So just firstly to start with, impaired memory. So a lot of people mightn't be aware of this, but not actually engaging in sleep and relaxation, that can have a huge impact on your memory and your ability to retain information. So when we relax, the flow of the blood increases around our body, giving us more energy. When energy levels are low, our brain is incapable of retaining then that information, as much information as is possible to affect your memory. So when we're looking at concentration, this further impacts how productive your study sessions are, or your day-to-day engagement activity, as a result of poor concentrations can be as well. So they're all got to do with your ability to retain that memory and retain those information. So lower stress threshold then, so relaxation slows our heart rate, it reduces our blood pressure and relieves that tension. So not engaging in rest and relaxation can allow for that build up of tension and those stress levels then to kind of heighten. So I mentioned that kind of the effects that not engaging enough self-care can have on relationships as well. That's where you can see a lot of snappiness and agitation then start to occur as a result of those heightened kind of stress levels. Reduced sociability and optimism. So I suppose then it's no wonder really when someone isn't engaged in rest and relaxation, that our desire then to engage in more social activity with their friends and family, or our ability to remain positive during that time, is also affected when attention and stress is quite high as well. So again, you can see a huge impact on that as well. Changes in vital signs and tissue repair. So rest and relaxation repairs your body, as I mentioned before, during sleep as well, particularly. So our body repairs themselves from daily wear and tear when we rest. Rest and relaxation then is a necessary part of the work cycle as a result of that. And must take it needs to take that your body all the more time to look after, and we need to take advantage of this as much as possible to ensure that we are generally happier and healthier, and allowing our mind and body that little bit of additional time just to heal and relax. Okay, they pop up there. So we'll just talk about, sorry, I moved on too fast there now. Just talk about the different relaxation techniques then. So what can you practice at home then when it comes to relaxation to ensure that you get that daily dose? I suppose the good news is there's loads of different rest and relaxation strategies and alternative different applications and things like that you can use to start implementing this now and today into your life as well, if this is something that you think you haven't done enough of. And even better, they're all accessible from your home environment. So just to give you a couple of examples, so deep breathing. Generally the 4-7-8 method is used to practice deep breathing. So that's inhale for 4 seconds, hold your breath for 7, and then exhale then for 8 as well. So I'm going to use that just in a moment as well, just to practice a really quick experiment, just to show you the impact that can have on your general day-to-day stress levels. I've got my Garmin watch here that'll hopefully help me out when explaining that as well. Mindfulness then. So this is a practice of purposely bringing one's attention to experiences occurring in the present moment. So thinking about the now and the present moment. So it just helps us focus our attention as well as to observe different thoughts that might be going on in your head at the moment, and feelings without that level of judgment as well. A simple mindfulness practice would be to just take a moment to identify 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things you feel, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. So thinking about all the senses then, and how you can take a moment then to pause about those things. Often people might prefer guided meditation just initially, even just to start with, but there's loads of different YouTube and Spotify playlists and things like that out there that can that might suit that preference if you do prefer guided meditation. Progressive muscular relaxation. So this is just a really quick method you can use as well. Again, that can be practiced at home, whereby it is I suppose it's coming from the idea that the muscle tension is the body's response or psychological response to anxiety provoking thoughts, and that muscle relaxation can help block out that anxiety. So this can be done just simply by tensing and relaxing muscle groups, and a simple practice, again, that you can complete now if you want, is just if you first focus on your toes, tense and relax your toes, working your way then up through your body, up to your calves, up to your stomach, your shoulders, your hands and your arms, and just taking that moment to focus on each muscle group at a time, and just that tensing and relaxing. Again, you can find, if you need a little bit of guidance with that, you can find a load of different resources like that on YouTube and different playlists and things like that that'll help you through that guidance as well. And then finally, the guided meditation then. So train yourself to gain attention and awareness and achieve a mentally clear and emotionally calm and stable state. So this is mainly achieved by focusing the mind on a particular object or a thought or a particular activity, for example. There's just several different techniques that might maybe come under that guided meditation, but that also includes yoga. It also includes mindfulness, as I mentioned there as well. I should also mention as well that orange circular shape on the screen there, that is in fact the Headspace app logo. So Headspace is a really, really useful application that a lot of people use. You can often see it actually advertised on YouTube sometimes. Look out for that on the apps page as well, and you can get thousands of different guided mindfulness sessions through that app as well, and it's free of charge. So do feel free to download that onto your app store as well. Okay, I'm just going to move on to the next slide. Okay, so just a really, really quick experiment then, and we'll be finishing up the presentation then shortly after that. So as I mentioned, I've got my Garmin watch on here. So again, you can do this. I'm only using this for the purpose of the experiment today, but you can use a timer or a watch, perhaps if you want, just to time your breathing for this one. But I'll guide you through the first couple of steps, and we'll go from there. And this is, I suppose, this is what we're just going to use just to show you the impact of rest and relaxation and deep breathing can have on your heart rate. So as I said, this has the heart rate monitor built onto it, so that allows you to kind of record stress levels in as well throughout the day, and it's relatively accurate, so I'm hoping that it'll work out. So we're just going to practice that deep breathing just for 1 minute, if that's okay. So if anyone wants to try it out with me now, you're more than welcome. Otherwise, you can take this after the meeting today and give it a go and see what you think. If you have a Garmin watch, great, you can see the actual effects of it. But otherwise, you should feel a lot calmer, and hopefully that deep breathing exercise will help as well. So I'm just going to start off with I have my stress levels indicated here. Hopefully they're not going to be high. Oh, they are high. Most likely that's because I'm presenting, but they're at 93 at the moment. So I'll just show you that. So we're at 93 at the moment. And I'm lucky with this in that it has a built-in deep breathing exercise when the heart rate is high. So I'm going to take 1 minute to relax, and I'll guide you through the first 10 seconds, and then we'll see how it goes. Okay, so if you just want to sit back with your back to your chair, if you just put your arms on your legs, your hands on your legs, get into a relaxed position, deep breathe in, hold that breath, and breathe out. And hold. Breathe in. Hold that breath. And breathe out. And hold. And you can see here my stress levels have gone all the way down to resting. So I'm on 9, down from 98. There might be something wrong there. That's a little bit alarming. But you can see that the stress levels do go down significantly. And that's a really, really good instant relief. I'd really advise, if anyone has any difficulty, say with panic attacks, for example, coming up to exams or even in an exam situation, that's a really good, useful technique to use in the moment. Again, you don't need anything else. You don't even need a timer if you don't want to. If you don't want to use the time method as well. All you have to do is just simply breathe in, breathe out, and hold those breaths as well. And you can see that instant relief that you might have as well. So thankfully that worked. So again, feel free to use that after this as well. There's I do have a video here. I'm noticed that I want to leave plenty of time for questions here as well. I can play them in a few moments as well if we do have enough time. This is just to finish up. It's just a set of different resources that we have that our OT team in Trinity, but also in UCD and TUD have gathered together. And that's mainly to help students through this particularly difficult time for the remainder of the semester, in particular, and coming up to exams. So there is a set of videos. They're all available over on our YouTube channel. And that's called Occupational Therapy Resources. So if you want to look us up, there's a couple of different videos there that might help, and we're hoping to upgrade this during the summer months as well to keep including further resources there. So we have one, for example, on setting up your environment for study, for exams and things like that. The video I wanted to play today was just on minding your mental health. It's just a really quick 5-minute long video, so I'll just see if we have any questions after this first, and if we do have time, I'll play that video as well to end on.